we go. Good evening. It's now 6 o'clock and I call to order the workshop of the Victoria City Council. Our workshops are informal, and with that, we'll dive right into our agenda. We have just one item on the workshop agenda this evening. It is a discussion of the use of unmanned aerial vehicles. Presenting this evening, we have Fire Chief Andrew Hager. Chief, the floor is yours.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for the time tonight. What I'd like to do tonight is just spend a little bit of time talking through some highlights of a policy we've developed related to the use of unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, and then show you some of the capabilities that we've outlined in that policy that can be used for city needs. So I'll dive right in. I'm not going to pull up the entire policy. That's in the packet for additional review. I just want to kind of hit some of the highlights related to this. So the primary use for a UAV, I'll refer to this as a UAV throughout the rest of the night as well, but the primary use that we'd be looking at for a UAV is public safety. And there's a couple of components to that we could use for, but obviously the thermal imaging capabilities that go along with these for locating fires or hotspots related to those. Search and rescue incidents. The fire department has been involved in 8 search and rescue missions over the last 24 months. That can be related to autistic children that have wandered away from home, vulnerable adults. We're out helping with those because we've got obviously a lot of people that we can put on the road and assist with that. So this would be another tool, in those types of incidents. Hazardous materials incidents would be another one. So these can get put into a location where a person can't, where there's chemicals or roadway or transportation incidents. Again, this can go in and do some recon prior to putting people in to see what's going on. Conducting damage assessments, so natural disaster, severe weather type incidents. I'll show you a photo later of what some of that would look like, but again, we can put this in the air and conduct some pretty quick damage assessments related to those types of weather events, and then also pre-incident planning. Currently, we're operating or relying on neighboring cities, well, not necessarily neighboring cities, but some cities in our area that have these capabilities for these types of uses. So when we've requested these in the past, they've typically come out of the Shakopee, Metawakan, and Sioux community. They've got a program down there, so they'll bring theirs in. The challenge that comes along with that, especially if we're looking at search and rescue type incidents, it's about a 30-minute delay before they're here and actually operational. So again, when search and rescue type incidents, we're looking for people, that introduces a big time delay on that. So, so just some other city needs that would increase operational efficiency and improve worker safety. We'll demonstrate a couple of those in a few minutes with some videos. And then we would also be developing a separate SOG related specifically to this that follows the FAA Part 107 requirements. So because we're not using this for hobbyist purposes, we have to follow the FAA 107 rules, which really dictate where we can fly this, when we can fly it, altitude, all that kind of stuff. So there's a whole nother set of rules that go along with this. The staff that we actually end up training have to get certified as a remote pilot certification through the FAA. So that'll be a whole separate requirement kind of after this fact. So the policy that you're looking tonight is just governing the overall use within the city, and then again, we'll develop further SOGs if this proceeds to actually fly it. So again, all use that we would for this device would be governed by the attached policy that's in front of you. We really focused that policy on privacy. Privacy is obviously a concern when operating these things. They give you a whole different perspective that you don't necessarily have from standing on the street or anything like that. So we really want to focus on privacy and making sure we're respecting that. And we've got some language in that policy about expectations of reasonable privacy, and if we can't maintain that, essentially that would be a reason to cancel the flight. So if we can't provide for the policy that we would expect, so if for example, if somebody in a fenced yard in their backyard has a reasonable expectation that nobody's watching them, especially from the air. If we can't maintain that, again, by either turning the camera a different direction or relocating the UAV itself, then again, the flight would get canceled. So our policy, really, we wanted to focus on that and make sure that privacy is obviously a concern and it's maintained and respected. And then again, something I think we could do for transparency purposes is annually publish a map on our city website showing where we flew this. So then people could go on there and, you know, it would be, basically a flight path would be plotted on the city website, and we could display that. So that's something we could grab off that machine on an annual basis and put it out on a map. So again, people have questions, want to see where it goes. Yes, Councilmember Black.
I just had a comment. I was wondering, when we deploy this, could we do a public notice so that people don't start going, what is that in the air and what is it doing?
I would say yes and no. Emergency situations, likely not, just because our staff would be focused on this. If it's some pre-planned stuff, you know, some marketing type things, if we were going to use it for, I think there's some opportunities potentially to do it there. So.
Okay, because I think that would calm a lot of people. Plus, when they do see those things in the air, there's a lot of chatter on social media about that type of thing. And if we can just say, this is what we're doing, it's an emergency or whatever, then they know what it is and why we're using it.
Yeah, I think a great point, and I think, again, the emergency part's a little bit more challenging if it's 2 a.m. I don't necessarily want to roust our communications manager out of bed just to put a post or something out there, so I think we can review further and see if there's some other opportunities there, so.
Okay.
Could we, were you done? Could we publish where it goes more than annually? Could we do it quarterly, monthly, after every use? I think a year, if something happened tomorrow, right, and we don't see a readout until December 31st, I mean, that's quite a.
Yeah, great question. I would have to look into that a little bit further. So there's a software program that would go along with that that allows us to capture that data. We would have to basically pull that into the GIS program. And because we don't own that, I don't necessarily have all the inner workings of how we can do that. I've been told it's capable of doing that. So I think if we can capture that data relatively easily, I think it's more, we could probably increase that to quarterly or, you know, whatever you feels more.
Or as used?
Yeah. Yep, definitely.
Another question, you commented earlier that we use Shakopees or Eden Prairies or whomever. Will we provide that same service to other communities that may not have one, that are, you know, Watertown or whoever it may be?
Yep. Yeah, that we wrote a section in that policy that basically says we'll use mutual aid. It'd be deployed just like a mutual aid resource in the fire service. So.
And then one of our officer, or one of our pilots, I guess they're called, would go with it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
And how many certified individuals are we gonna have? Is it 3, 4? I mean, for us, I just don't want us to get stuck with just you and then you're gone and can't do anything.
Yeah, we're kind of shooting in the window of 8 to 10. So yes, there'll be multiple people that have the capability to operate. So.
Is there, you know, if we're recording and videoing, is there going to be a certain period of time we keep stuff for, or, you know, deleting stuff if there is accidental recordings of things we don't want? Is there going to be a policy on how long we keep the data?
Yeah, so there is a section in there on data retention, and basically, I know Bob had a little comment on this as far as how it's worded. We're basically following or adopting the Minnesota data retention standards that are out there, and there's not separate items for UAV data. However, it would fall under just general photos and video. What those are off the top of my head, I don't recall right now, but we would follow that retention schedule. So. Well, and I should add too, so you brought up the mutual aid question, so if we do fly on behalf of another organization, the easiest and the cleanest way to manage data is at the end of the flight, unplug the memory card and pass it off, and then it's that organization's responsibility to manage, and we don't have any involvement in that. So, all right, any other questions before I move on to the next? All right. So again, we've outlined some prohibited uses specifically within the policy. And again, we're not going to be out conducting any random surveillance activities. We won't be using it for harassment, intimidation, discrimination against any individuals or groups. We won't be using this for any code enforcement activities for like inspections or anything like that. So if somebody filed a complaint that their neighbor's fence is encroaching on their yard, we're not flying this into somebody's backyard to observe that. So it won't be used for any type of code enforcement actions. We will not be using this to assist law enforcement for any criminal investigations or the execution of any search warrants. So where we will assist law enforcement, again, is what I referred to earlier, is the search and rescue type thing. So a missing child, missing vulnerable adult, we'll be out helping with that, but we're not going to be participating in any criminal elements or criminal cases. So that's, law enforcement and UAVs are kind of a whole separate world. There's specific state statute that has some very specific requirements involving that, so we're going to stay completely out of that. So. And then the last one, again, just conducting any personal business.
Prohibited uses and emergency uses, what's going, is it, I don't know if it's spelled out in here, I'm trying to find it, but what's gonna dictate an emergency use, and where's that line? Because I guess I don't want it to be we're always getting to the point, then, oh, all of a sudden we found them, now we gotta put everything back, and the user's gotta go back home. So what's the line for emergency that we're bringing it out? And
So to assist law enforcement would strictly be with like search and rescue for
even for
missing
us,
persons.
even for us with I mean, they're instigating we need to use this for a missing person, or
we would ourselves.
we're called and we're just like, okay,
Yep.
we're gonna get it up. So what's the line? Is there a line? Would they have contacted law enforcement first to say that someone is missing, or are they calling the city to say, I think somebody's
They're
missing?
calling, yeah, they're calling 911. Yep. So that would, then,
I just
you know,
didn't want them to call us and be like, we're gonna get this up and start looking before law enforcement knows what's going on.
nope, that would all go through 911. So,
I would assume there's some protocol already in place for that.
yes, yep, there is. All right, so budgetary. This was included as a 2022 CIP item. We did budget 45,000. Just like anything else that's out there, you can spend as much as you want on these. So 45,000 is really on the higher end of what we found out there. So that's what we included in the budget to be safe. After reviewing some options and kind of landing on what best suits our needs, the one you're looking at on the table here tonight, the actual expense for that one's about 10,000. So that's the full UAV itself, the camera, the controller, batteries, everything like that.
Software.
Yep, that's all included. So that would be, there'll be a little additional cost just with training some staff and getting them certified on top of that, probably in the $2,000 mark. So all said and done, it's probably a $10,000 or $12,000 project, including all training. So
Is that certification an annual renewal, or how does that work? Or once you're certified, you're certified?
you are certified for 2 years, and then there's a FAA refresher course that's free that you just have to do online once every 2 years. So it's about a 4-hour refresher course. So ongoing maintenance then that's associated with these, it really comes down to batteries and propellers. So if you do clip something with one of those propellers, they're pretty fragile, it'll break. They're about $30 for a set. Batteries run 4 to 5 years of life, and they're $220. So those would be included in future fire department operating budgets as we get in the 4 or 5 year window. So
What do you think the lifespan of that thing is?
the drone itself, we're figuring 10 years.
What if it hits a bird or something?
It's possible. So,
You lose control and it whacks into the side of a building.
so the nice thing about that is there's 17 different sensors on it. Similar to when you're backing up your car and it beeps at you if you get too close to something. That's got all of those same sensors on it. So if the operator is paying attention to the controller, it's going to tell them they're near something. But yes, you do run the risk, you could hit a bird, and that would more than likely bring it down and crash it. So the airframe itself isn't the real cost associated with those. The actual airframe is about $1,500. It's the camera that's the expensive part.
Right.
Is there insurance?
So they would be covered just through our general policy with the League of Minnesota Cities.
We have a deductible.
$2,000 deductible or
Is that what it is?
$500 deductible.
Yep. So we'd have some money in the event of a crash, we'd be obligated to financially to a part of it, but insurance would cover the rest.
What type of cost do we usually pay, like when we have to go out to other communities to bring their stuff in?
So we don't bill for any of that right now, and they're not billing us right now. So where we gain some opportunities of some of the other uses that we've identified through other city departments that we can use this that aren't, we can't call a neighboring department and say, hey, come do this for us, you know, public works type issues, so. So again, I'll get into some of the uses here. You know, for missing persons, these have thermal imaging capability. Again, thermal imaging is, looks for differences in temperature and then displays that via color down to 0.1 degrees Celsius. So it can really hone in on temperature. So what you're looking at here in this image, anything red is hot or the hottest, and blues, greens are kind of colder. So again, people stand out really well, especially in a cold background. Pretty easy to pick up. I don't remember the exact altitude that we were at when we took this, but we were probably 100 feet in the air when we snapped this photo. So this is just another shot, and the video isn't playing on it right now. Oh, there it goes. So this is kind of a thermal imaging overlay of just a standard camera picture. So again, you're seeing those temperature variations displayed via different colors, and then you've got the outline of the just the standard image behind it. This will kind of zoom in, and kind of right in the bottom of the thermal picture right now, there's 5 people standing in the street around a vehicle. So again, we're giving off some heat signatures there. So, you know, you can cover some significant ground pretty quickly with this versus traditional search methods. When we start looking at fires, this is something I found off the internet too, so we didn't go light this or anything, but you've got 2 side-by-side pictures. One's just a standard, you know, aerial photography of a building that's on fire. And then on the right-hand side, you see those thermal imaging capabilities. And if you look on the standard image on the far bottom left corner, you'll see just kind of a small section of flat roof, and there's nothing coming from that right now. There's no smoke, there's no flame, anything like that. If you look at that same image on the right-hand side, on the thermal picture, you'll see some yellows and reds in there. So that's telling us there's definitely some significant heat in there that you're not seeing with the naked eye, or you wouldn't necessarily see standing at the street. So again, fires, this can be a very valuable tool at helping find some of those hot spots or, you know, concealed fires.
Chief, if there were people in this fire, would they show up in this thing as well? How would you differentiate between what's flame and what's people?
Yeah, inside they would not. So again, that technology doesn't have the ability to see through items. So you're going to see the temperature variation on that roof. You won't be able to see through it though. So.
Unless they go inside.
Yep, and we've got some other handheld thermal imaging technology for inside.
Okay.
So again, damage assessments, if there, you know, severe weather event, tornado or something like that ever came through the city, we keep our fingers crossed it doesn't ever happen, but you know, this is a great way to get some eyes up and find out, you know, significant damage impacts to infrastructure, streets, and anything like that to make a rapid assessment of what the needs are to address that incident. So those are kind of the public safety needs. Our uses, we talked a little bit about like marketing and communications. So again, using some photography that we can capture with this for our newsletters, website, anything like that. Typically, we pay a photographer to come out and do some of this stuff, so we could do this in-house now and keep it within our communications group. The other thing that all of these other city needs could do is serve as training time for the pilots that you know, ultimately do get certified, so they could go out and fly these. So our Public Works group, see if this will play as well, they've got a couple spots in town where the beavers like to obstruct waterways. So they currently go out and walk these ponds to try to locate where an obstruction may be, and then they'll have to go address the issue from there after they locate it. Again, we could put something like this up in the air in a matter of 2 or 3 minutes, fly the entire area, find the obstruction, and put somebody in there. It prevents somebody from having to go walk through, some of these cattails or heavily wooded areas. And again, so we can capture that pretty quickly and then get somebody in to address the issue after that, so. Same thing with the water tower. Again, we can
Expect,
get a little closer look at the water tower as far as maintenance needs go. So they're currently doing some pressure washing and painting on a scheduled rotation, but we can get in there and look at that a little bit closer, see what those needs are, if we need to specifically accelerate that or if we can delay it based on what we're seeing in these. So again, we can get up really close and check that out. So there's various means of using this as far as development goes as well. So, we could go out and a new development's coming in, we could go out and fly the property prior to grading taking place to see what existing conditions are. We can do another flight, once streets are in, to provide updates as far as progress of the development, see what's going on with it. We could also utilize this as a means for some inspection purposes for prior to the city actually accepting that development and taking on the responsibility of that. So some opportunities there with development review as well. And again, here's just another shot of that. This is actually the Huntersbrook development down on County 11, and got a couple of basements in, and they're framing out there already. So,
in this weather?
yep. So next steps. And then I'll get this thing operational, let you take a quick peek at it. But before you on the council meeting tonight under the consent agenda, you have consideration for adoption of policy 2.2.016. That's the policy that's attached to the packet. As long as that gets approved tonight, then again, we'd start the purchasing process, the training process, and the goal would be operational within 6 months. So just that, I'm going to walk this way, but I'll take any questions.
All right. Council, other questions?
Just curious, what's the range? How far away can it go from the operator?
All right, so the range is really dependent on terrain. No obstacles, 5 miles it can do that. Now, the FAA rules that are in place say that you have to maintain visual sight, line of sight at all times. So we can't fly it 5 miles away. We've got to have it maintain sight with it at all times.
Okay.
Chief, what are some of the other rules that are different from being recreational versus having?
They mainly focus around like registration. So we have to register this with both the FAA, with MnDOT.
Here you are.
And then again, some of the actual
red mouth.
requirements for flight. We're just on the edge of Flying Cloud Airport's flight space requirements. If you get into Chanhassen, they have pretty strict requirements as far as flying near Flying Cloud's airspace. So that's what it really focuses on.
Okay.
All right, I'll put this thing up in the air a little bit. So what you're seeing now is a thermal imaging capability. And the crosshairs that are kind of in the middle of the screen are showing us the hottest temperature that's displayed in here. Now it's not wanting to sync.
Signal weak.
Yeah, it's not gonna go. Okay, so not sure why, but it's not wanting to fly. So, so again, this is just our standard camera, and then we can toggle back and forth between that and the thermal imaging as well. So again, that thermal imaging tool really provides, some very valuable insight as far as where hotspots or anything are located. So.
I'm playing with it.
So I was hoping to put this thing up in the air for a few minutes.
Intelligent flight, manual flight, can you do manual flight?
Yeah, I'm not sure why it won't go. We had it earlier.
Home point has been reset.
Not gonna go. So,
It's like bringing your car to the service station. It works perfectly once you get there.
Yeah, we're still learning.
yeah. But, yeah, again, you can see the capabilities of the camera on here as well, so, see some of that thermal imaging, so. So with that, that is all I have tonight, unless there's any additional questions.
Council, anything else?
Mayor,
right.
do you mind if I ask a question?
Please.
It's really just for my own edification, but, so this reminds me a little bit of body cameras with police officers, where new technology was slow to come in, but then once it got going, it's really taken off. I feel like maybe this is a kind of thing that public safety are gonna have much more in the future. Does that seem right to you, that this is the way of the future, kind of?
Yes, I would agree with that. We're seeing a lot more departments.
Oh, yeah. I've seen it in a lot of movies, too.
Cool.
Right. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, this was a discussion item only, so we don't need to take any action on this. However, the council does have an item on their consent agenda this evening to adopt the policy that governs the use of this unmanned aerial vehicle. Staff, council, or a member of the public is welcome to pull this item off the consent agenda if additional discussion is needed or with any questions. So council, if there's no further discussion, there are no more items to come before the body this evening, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
We have a motion. Can I get a second? Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? We're adjourned. All right.